Yeah, this is Lucas. I, like hopefully many of you, have been recently playing Legends ZA. The newest game is Pokemon Legends ZA a perfect game? Absolutely not. I mean, we've already had enough controversy about the windows themselves and a whole host of other issues. You know, difficulty and world design and hundreds upon hundreds of other issues within the game itself, right? There are always going to be 100 criticisms. That's how all games are. No matter what, there will be something to be critical about, and that's fine. That's how games work. That's how critiquing works. That's how media improves and grows. But as somebody who has grown up with the Pokemon franchise and with Game Freak as game developers, I see a lot of criticism online, and I sit there and I start to question things, right? Because realistically, we all know Game Freak. We all know their MO. They make games with the idea that children will play them, and that's never been an excuse, right? It doesn't matter if a game's meant for kids, it should still be good. I mean, just look at Mario has always been such high quality. Even the games that people don't really necessarily like, the new Super Mario Bros. Series, people still love those games, and they are still of a certain quality. Um, but there's been a whole lot of discourse recently about Game Freak, more than usual, I should say, because over the course of the last, I don't want to say decade because it hasn't been that long, but over the course of the last forever that I can think of, Game Freak has been in the public eye and the public ire for being a company that is lazy, that refuses to innovate and evolve in certain ways uh, when they should. And that was probably best seen with Scarlet and Violet, right? A game that sets out to innovate on the open world and give you a more free and versatile Pokemon experience. And yet, when you look at the actual game, it is not that at all. It is not a game that is worthwhile, that is fun for the most part. It's a bad game, I would say. It is one of my least favorite, if not my least favorite Pokemon game. Games, top 5 worst games I've ever played. I can't even pick this game up without wanting to throw myself off a bridge at times. It's not fun. But the idea that Game Freak is lazy, you're just wrong. You're wrong about Game Freak. These are developers who are the opposite of lazy. I have been following this company, this franchise, for years. I've bought every game. Yes, I'm part of the problem. I've bought every game because I enjoy them. I have nostalgia for this franchise, much like most people do. But I love them to such a high degree just because, I mean, look at this. Look at this. And especially with this game. How on earth can you look at this game and say, they were lazy? Homie, they brought to life the anime fights. Have you played this game? I know there's hundreds of criticisms about the windows and the graphics. Have you played it? This is one of the most fun Pokemon games I've ever played. And I'm someone who enjoys the tedium of regular day-to-day Pokemon battles. I'm someone who will play Platinum and not budge an eye at the fact that, the health bars move at a snail's pace. It's not the speed that matters to me. It's the combat. It's the feeling of being in control of a team that you've put together. And yes, I will mention, if you take a quick look at my team, I know it's blurry. It is the team of a 10-year-old. I mean, look at this big old Garchomp. Look at this big old Garchomp. The fact that I'm running around with my Pokemon and I'm commanding it in battle. We've never been able to like fully feel that. The closest thing is Pokémon Tournament. And I'm going to be real, if you like Pokémon Tournament, you're kind of a nerd. But just this game is so crazy that this is the one. This is the one that broke the camel's back. Really? This one? Not Scarlet and Violet? I mean, I know people were angry at Scarlet and Violet, but like, this is the one? Look at this thing. Here's Feraligatr. Wonderful. Look at that. I can just hang out with Feraligatr. And you're telling me this is the one? No, you're wrong about Game Freak. You're wrong about Game Freak. I mean, I would like to talk today particularly about Game Freak in general. Game Freak is a company of about 300 employees, give or take, that is developing Breath of the Wild style games. At least that's what this game is telling me. They want to develop, and this game. These two games alone tell me that they want to develop open world Breath of the Wild style games. And yet, just look at the numbers. Now, to be fair, most of what I'm about to talk about is coming from leaks. The Terra leak that happened over on Twitter and Discord. We got official numbers for the Pokemon game budgets. We got official numbers for the Pokemon game budgets. And how much do you think this game right here was made for? Is it like 16 million? Now, people who don't know the game industry probably don't really know what that number means. It might not even mean anything to them. And that's fair. 16 million is a lot of money to most people. But we're talking about the game industry. The game industry where, let's go back to Breath of the Wild, is $100 million. $100 million to make an expansive, open world, beautifully crafted game with tons of content and care and attention to detail. Let's not talk too deeply about the shrines, which are bare bones in that specific element. But overall, when we look at Game Freak, that's the kind of game they want to make. And you're telling me that Scarlet and Violet, which is the most analogous to Breath of the Wild, was made with $21 million. $21 million to emulate a game that is worth $100 million. $100 million and about 5 to 6 years of development time. Scarlet and Violet, how much time did you get? Oh, about 3, about half that time. And that's where the comment comes in. Game Freak's lazy. Game Freak is lazy. They don't work hard enough. They aren't doing it right. And I hate that comment. I hate that comment so much. I'm not saying that you're ignorant, but maybe it's not that Game Freak's lazy. We need to look a little deeper, right? Because you hear that this game had a $21 million budget, and you go, well, Pokemon's the biggest media franchise in the world. Why don't they have a bigger budget? Why doesn't Game Freak just put more money into their games? That's a good question. It's probably because Game Freak doesn't control the budget. They haven't for as long as the Pokemon company's been a thing. You see, back when Pokemon was starting to become successful and Nintendo was becoming the official publisher for their games, they decided to do a little teamwork, along with Creatures Inc., who developed most of the models you see. Love that. Most of the models you see for Boys, for Alligator, Garchomp, all of them. All of them. They make the primary models for the Pokemon, along with making the cards. So, Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures Inc. come together, and they form the Pokemon Company, which is run by other people. Basically, the Pokemon Company is in charge of the Pokemon brand, right? They're in charge of marketing and media, the anime, the cards, merchandise, everything. But in addition, they also have the budgets and the deadlines. And so, knowing that the Pokemon Company, which is a third party, essentially, is in control of both the budget and the time restraints for Game Freak, what does that tell you? Well, it tells us that Game Freak might not want to make a Scarlet and Violet. In fact, they don't want to make a Scarlet and Violet. They want to make a Breath of the Wild, except they are never given the budget for Breath of the Wild. And so you can see how that might be an issue. I mean, just think about the fact that this game here, 15 million, is probably the best looking Pokemon game to date, if we're not counting pixel art and its timeless ability to capture the hearts of everybody. This is probably the most graphical fidelity that we've seen in a Pokemon game. And it was 15 million. And that's why corners are cut. That's why buildings don't have windows. And another part of it, of course, and this is a criticism that I will 100%, wholeheartedly, I completely understand. Game Freak is not great at developing games. They have never been great at processing and laying out games in ways that aren't entirely wrong, let's say. Back to the Terra League. We saw that during development, they were planning to have these balconies and these windows all be 3D assets, which is what people want, obviously. But it took too much processing power. And in addition, we are currently still looking into it, I believe, at least the people who go into the files and inspect everything, they are currently looking into the fact that the map, this entire map, is loaded in all at once. And that is probably true. The only reason I say that is because you go back as far as Sun and Moon, and the character of Lily is in the map like 3 times, always loaded at all times. Not sure why. Heck, everyone knows the story that Pokemon Gold and Silver weren't originally going to have Kanto until somebody came in and optimized the games, and then they were able to fit an entire other region in there. And so that tells you that Game Freak, since its inception, has never been great at the actual mechanical things, everything underneath the hood. But I digress. I've always, cherished their art design and whatnot. But let's get back to the issue at hand. They want to make Nintendo-style Nintendo games. They want a big budget, Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, which we'll get into maybe in a different video. I don't like it. But they want to make these grand games. And yet, they don't have the budget, they don't have the time, and they don't have the team. Now, I am not exactly sure on the team size of proper Nintendo games, like Zelda and Mario. But I know for a fact that when Nintendo's struggling, they're able to call upon extra people. And when Game Freak wanted a little extra help, who did the Pokemon Company get for them? Ilka, a company that was most known for making mobile games. So what did they get? They got a mobile game, BDSP, which is also, I never played it. I'm not completely part of the problem. I never played that one because it looked bad. So that tells you that the Pokemon Company really doesn't care. They want to maximize profits and minimize, uh, sorry, they want to maximize sales and minimize the amount of money they have to put in, which is fair. That's what companies do, but then you run into an issue where fans stop trusting Game Freak. Game Freak, the developers who spend so much time and effort trying to put these games together for people to enjoy. And if you're like me and like many others, you are enjoying them. It's just, it's draining because you see other franchises that you love and you want Pokemon to be that way, but it can't be because the Pokemon Company refuses to put in the time and the money to make the games what they are. They have a very tight schedule. Everything relies on the games. The anime relies on the games. The cards rely on the games. The merchandise. They have to release everything all in one go. And so it's a very tight and oiled machine, except one of the cogs happens to be rusty, and it's Game Freak. And it's because game development isn't so simple. It was fine back during the DS era. You know, back when these games were made of pixel art and the engine was the exact same every single time. And it was just as simple as updating a couple things here and there. But we're not in that time anymore. Sure, Pokemon's been able to streamline, you know, how the models are and how everything like that is, but we're still running into an issue where overall they aren't able to capitalize on, you know, their dev time because they aren't given any dev time. They aren't given time to make these games what they could be. The reason that Scarlet and Violet, Legends Arceus, Legends ZA, all of these games are not what you want them to be is because the Pokemon Company isn't giving Game Freak the proper time. I mean, heck, have you guys seen Beast of Reincarnation? Game Freak's newest game that's releasing on PlayStation and Xbox? What's that? They have a game releasing on PlayStation and Xbox? Yes, they do. And it looks like a regular modern game. Crazy that when Game Freak is able to budget their own thing and put their own time and put a timestamp on it, and it's not just determined by the Pokemon Company, they're actually able to make a product that looks like an actual product. And so I understand why people don't want to support these games. I get it. I mean, I would be upset too. This is not where Pokemon should be. But you're putting your blame in the wrong place. It's not Game Freak. I mean, clearly it's not Game Freak. Am I insane for saying that? Like, everyone blames Game Freak for some reason. Game Freak's lazy. Game Freak's incompetent. Game Freak, Game Freak, Game Freak. Guys, you're pointing your finger in the wrong place. It's not Game Freak. I mean, even Scarlet and Violet, which, again, trash game. What a nice bench. I thought that was the guy talking to me. It's not. It's just how the character talks. Even Scarlet and Violet, which, again, trash game, awful game. Did I just skip tonight? That was an accident. Whatever. Is at least enjoyable in the way that, like, shiny hunting was good. And there were characters that were fun. Maybe not the best. Let's admit it. Then Penny's kind of eh. Arven is my boy, but not the best character. Especially not the best champion. God dang. Nothing on Steven. Steven's my favorite champion. I grew up with Owen. Don't worry about it. And that brings me to my final point. Look at the Terra Leaks. I know that's probably bad. Maybe don't look at the Terra Leaks. I'm going to tell you about some of the Terra Leak stuff. Have you seen Generation 10? We're going to get it in about 3 months from when this video is uploaded. It might be closer to 2. Not released, but we're going to see it. Generation 10 is, luckily, going to have a bigger budget. About 30 million. It's going to be open world again. And let's just say, so I don't get taken down, it's going to be similar to Wind Waker and Hoenn. Mash them together. And that, to me, sounds fun. But we also have some extra behind the scenes stuff. Not the best gameplay footage. A lot of the Terra League stuff is pretty old at this point, a couple years at least. And what it tells us is that Game Freak has been working on a new engine. They are trying to streamline their process as much as possible. And that they still want to do open world, and they want to focus on free exploration, do what you want, Breath of the Wild kind of thing. And I think this time they might be able to do it. Now, I know 30 million is still a fraction of Breath of the Wild's budget, but I do want to bring up a couple things. Scarlet and Violet is a game that has like 0 content. Actually, it has 18 pieces of content. Its Pokedex is kind of the way everything spawns in, everything loads, everything looks trash, yada yada yada. 100 points to why Scarlet and Violet is the worst game ever. Let's pause for a moment. That was a moment to reflect on how bad Scarlet and Violet is. But quick question: is Game Freak have they ever like sacrificed games in the past to improve the next ones, especially like anniversary titles? I know that's a weird question. It almost sounds like I'm setting up to say that they have done that. Hey, what was the game that technically comes before this? X and Y? Man, those games are kind of cool. Too bad they didn't have a Z version. Oh wait, they were planned to have a Z version, and it was scrapped. In fact, a lot of X and Y's content was scrapped. It's kind of why a bunch of Kanto Pokemon were thrown in there. What were they scrapped for again? Oh, the anniversary title, Sun and Moon, which is probably the, other than this, second best looking Pokemon game ever, with heaps of content and tons of great character writing, story, boss battles, music. Listen, on a second playthrough, it's a bit of a slog, but on the first playthrough, that is one of the best Pokemon games you can probably play. And X and Y was sacrificed for it. X and Y's development time and its money were likely sacrificed so Sun and Moon could be as packed as it could for the 25th anniversary. Or was it the 20th? So one of the two. Now, Scarlet and Violet, this little gem right here. You think this was sacrificed at all? I mean, it has like no content, all the routes are empty, all the characters are boring, there's basically no story. Its whole main gimmick is Pokemon that look exactly like other Pokemon but are kind of robotic or kind of feral. It almost feels like Game Freak might have sacrificed Scarlet and Violet because they were required to release it so that they could work on Gen 10 more, which is an anniversary title for the 30th. Just a thought. I'm not saying that's what they did. But in 2 months' time, Generation 10 looks pretty good. That's all. Lay off Game Freak. All right? I get it. It's a multi-million-dollar company. It's the highest media franchise in the world. I'm not saying don't be critical of Pokemon. I love being critical of Pokemon. It's like my favorite pastime. I'm just saying, take a moment, take a breather, realize who the real enemy is. And I get it. It's hard to say that Game Freak is not part of the problem, because realistically they are. They mass-produce games, they struggle with performance and actually, finishing their games. But if you were given a 200-page essay and you were only given about half the time you actually needed, so let's say 2 weeks, and funnily enough, every time you went to get food, half of that money was taken. I feel like you would also not do very well. It's just a thought. It's a thought I think you should think on, because I love Pokemon as a franchise. I think it's an incredible look into the monster taming genre. It jump-started it for the most part, other than Shin Megami Tensei. And I do want to talk more about monster taming in the future, because it's a genre that I love so much. I'm not saying I have autism, but if I did, it's probably for monsters. Just give Game Freak a break. We'll see in 2 months. Maybe I'll make a follow-up. I'm putting my money on Gen 10 looking pretty good, though. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think my points still stand. Game Freak is essentially an indie developer who's trying their hardest to get a little bit more money out of their benefactor. And they just aren't budging. And this is one of the worst areas in the game, by the way. If anyone ever tells you that, oh, Area 17 is the best, no, wrong. Go kill yourself. Luckily, these lions have not noticed me, but they will. And when they do, I'm dead. That is the video. That is all I have to say. Please subscribe. Look forward to more content in the future. And give Game Freak a moment. A breather, if you will. Because I am sick of seeing on every social media site that Game Freak is one of the laziest companies ever. Because it's just not true. Thank you for watching.